Hi, welcome to Loft 801. My name is Diego, and today I'm talking about Kyle Mooney's feature film debut, Y2K. Released today on December 6, 2024, it's a horror comedy thriller set on New Year's Eve in 1999. The film combines elements of nostalgia, dark humor, and coming-of-age themes to create a cheesy cinematic experience. I'm kind of bummed because I thought I was going to get my review out before Jeremy Jahns, but he cooked me when I was at work. Even worse, he feels the exact same way as I do about this movie, bar for bar. Anyways, before I hop into my review, if you want to support the channel, then please take a second to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thank you, I really appreciate it. As a warning, this review will contain some major spoilers, so please continue at your own risk. Lastly, if you want to see me review something, don't forget to let me know by leaving a comment and I will do my best to get to it. Thank you, I'm hopping in 3, 2, 1. The narrative follows two high school juniors, Eli and Danny, played by Jaeden Martell and Julian Dennison. I'm going to stop right there because I want to talk about Jaeden Martell. I saw It and It Chapter 2 and I thought he was okay. He's a likable guy, but not an extraordinary actor to me. I don't get his appeal. In this movie, I don't think he's a very good lead. He's too timid and his acting feels too dry for me. His character reminds me a lot of Thomas Cub from Project X, but he doesn't take the risks Thomas does, so I don't feel like rooting for him. He feels like a watered down knockoff. I feel terrible saying that because again, Martell is a nice guy and I desperately want to root for him, but I just don't get his appeal. On the other hand, Julian Dennison is great. He is easily the best character in the entire movie and I'm so pissed off he gets killed within the first 30 minutes of the film. He's like Costa from Project X. Imagine if Costa died within Project X and the rest of the film was Thomas being sad and numb. It's a completely different movie and it's nowhere near as funny or fun to watch. That's exactly how I felt when Danny died. I'm jumping ahead of myself, so let me go back and lay down some groundwork. Eli and Danny decide to crash a New Year's Eve party on December 31st, 1999. All the cool kids are at this party, including Eli's crush, Laura, played by Rachel Zegler. The party is fun, and I loved how it's exactly what millennial parties were like. No phones in sight, just good vibes. My boy Danny is the vibe. He brings the party to life and fits in naturally because he doesn't care what others think of him. Eli just watches, which sucks. His sticky bestie Westy gets a midnight smooch, and the girl of his dream makes out with the Kid LAROI's soccer Chris. As the clock strikes midnight, the much-feared Y2K bug causes technology to malfunction, leading to a chaotic uprising of machines against humans. Your typical teenage party turns into a massacre. This is where my major complaints with this movie start. Soccer Chris dies, which really sucks because he's the perfect funny douchebag you want around trying to survive. He's a great source of humor. If this were a Seth Rogen movie like This Is the End, then he would be Danny McBride. More importantly than Soccer Chris, Danny dies. He literally saves everybody, and then when he stops to be a bro, he gets got. Taking out the two most charismatic characters in the movie is a crazy move to me. Again, imagine if This Is the End didn't have Seth Rogen as Jay's best friend. The humor wouldn't hit the same and it'd be hard to root for Jay. The only other character who has charisma is Rachel Zegler. I'm a huge fan of Rachel Zegler's acting and singing. I might have some PR complaints about her, but I definitely don't have anything against her acting. I think she does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to the acting in this movie. Unfortunately, Laura's dynamic with Eli isn't very believable to me. The relationship by the end of the film just doesn't feel earned because the chemistry isn't there. I'm sure it could have been, but their character writing just wasn't great. Things felt a little too shallow. The side characters that survive the massacre are the rejects, literally. They're the punks and they're okay, just not very funny and I don't care to root for them. I think Lachlan Watson's Ash sucks. I think Eduardo Farco's Farkas is great, but he also almost immediately dies after escaping the massacre. It's so silly. Daniel Zolgrati's CJ is fine. I liked his dynamic with Ash, but again, they just felt like B characters to fill up screen time. The entire time I was watching this movie, I was thinking to myself, this feels like an SNL skit, but with a higher budget. SNL annoys me, it's not my humor. As I researched this movie, I know why it feels like SNL. It's because director Kyle Mooney is a former Saturday Night Live cast member. He's copying the SNL format for comedy, which is why it doesn't work for me. Tragic. My final major complaints with this movie are the direction and pacing. The first 30 minutes of this movie are genuinely great. The house party and the uprising robots murdering high school students are great. The random combination of robots and outlandish deaths during this scene are great. The chaos is nice, and this is what the movie really should have leaned into once the characters escape the house. Instead, for nearly the remainder of the film, we only get 2 robot encounters and they suck. This frustrates me because I loved seeing the robots. I loved how they were put together from VCR players, television screens, Tamagotchis, wires, keyboards, and all sorts of bits and bobs. This movie should have focused on the teens gearing up and warring against the robots instead of walking and hiding and talking and talking and talking. The other thing that really annoyed me with this movie was Fred Durst Durst and his character, which is himself. I never cared about Limp Bizkit growing up, and Durst feels intrusive in this movie. He overstays his welcome, and his chemistry with the other actors doesn't work for me. I mentioned growing up, so let's talk about nostalgia. That is the biggest strength this movie has. I am a 90s kid. Kind of, not really. I was born in 99, but there are tons of things in this movie that I look back on fondly. For starters, the party. Growing up, I remember going to family and neighborhood parties and nobody ever had phones. It was just straight up vibes, barbecuing and hanging out and conversing with people. I love that this movie captures that vibe. I'm not old enough to remember dial-up. That's millennial shit, man. I'm Gen Z. But I do remember AOL, You've Got Mail, and how awfully websites were made. They were distinctive and this movie captures them. Another thing I love about this movie is the blowing on the cartridge trick. I remember doing that to my Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64, hoping GoldenEye and Super Smash Bros. Would work. Lastly, I love the movie store because I really missed them. I remember going to Hollywood movies and Blockbuster as a kid and getting to pick Friday night movies with my brothers and dad. It was the best. There are so many other millennial and 90s things in this movie that make it nostalgic. Cinematographer Bill Pope uses a dynamic visual style that captures the frenetic energy of the era. Whether it's handheld cameras capturing rap battles or more stabilized shots capturing the Y2K themed party decorations, things feel authentic. The use of practical effects with the robots is great. I loved seeing the household appliances in the party turn hostile. They added a tangible realism to the absurdism. Visually, this movie captures the zeitgeist of the millennium's end. I'm sure the soundtrack is great for people who grew up in the 90s, but for me, it was okay. 90s music was never my jam. I grew up with 2000s and 2010s music. I was all about Sean Kingston, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, Ayaz, Chris Brown, and Tayo Cruz. The inclusion of Blink-182 and Destiny's Child in this movie doesn't speak to me. However, I do love Chumbawamba's Tump Thumping, and I would have loved to see a Let's Fight the Robots scene. Oh well. Y2K is a mixed bag that delivers a lot of nostalgic charm and a fun satirical premise, but deeply struggles with uneven character development, pacing, and direction. While the first 30 minutes shine with high energy chaos and dark humor, the film loses that momentum and never regains it as it shifts focus away from the robot uprising that made its opening so engaging. Julian Dennison's Danny is a standout, and his untimely demise highlights the film's failure to capitalize on its most charismatic characters. Jaeden Martell's Eli lacks the gravitas and charm to carry this story, and Rachel Zegler's Laura, though well acted, feels undermined by lackluster chemistry and shallow writing. Kyle Mooney's directorial style leans heavily on his SNL roots, which might resonate with people who like that style of humor, but not with me. On the bright side, the practical effects and production design evoke a strong sense of millennial nostalgia, capturing the essence of the era with the VCR turned killer robots and 90s party vibes. If you grew up in the 90s, I'm sure you'll love this movie. If you're a 99 Gen Z baby like me, the nostalgia can only do so much. Y2K is an amusing, inconsistent trip down memory lane that is almost awesome. Unfortunately, I can't recommend this movie to anyone other than millennials. Thank you for listening to my review of Y2K. If you enjoyed the content, leave a like and hit subscribe. If you did not enjoy the content, thank you for sticking around. As always, I would love to read what you have to say, so leave a comment and let me know what you're thinking. Also, if you want me to review something, don't forget to let me know by leaving a comment and I will do my best to get to it. Lastly, if you want to see some more from me, then you can check out my vlogs linked up above or my podcast, Good Friends. Again, thank you for watching. My name is Diego, and I will see you next time.